All right. So 14 of you. I don't think I can wait. So we just proceed. Eh? Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Right. So you already done your test. So oh yeah, forgot to ask the feedback. Are you okay with the test? So far, so okay, so good, so not okay. Which one?
Okay.
Okay. I baru kata half, not half lah, quarter. Go through your test. But so far, I tengok macam okay. Macam okay. But not, I'm not, I mean, finalize it yet. But just to je lah kan. You already done it. Dah buat, dah usaha. So tawakal tu Allah lah. Okay. Okay, never mind. Because why? Chapter 1 to 3 will not um I mean, will not repeat again in this coming, for the big final assessment letter. So better you focus, start for the chapter 4, 5, 6, 7. Why? Because this coming exam, of course, the times will be longer. There will be 3 hours. Okay, the question will be more, and this time is actually plus with the AC. All right. So within 3 hours, I don't think you can just get a mess everything. So you must be very alert to that particular of the exam. And for this coming exam, for the final assessment, 4, 5, 6, 7, 4 is actually there is a possibility to come out 2 question from chapter 4. Okay, calculation. 2 from the chapter 4, and then chapter 7 also got 2. Chapter 7 is actually international trade and the balance of payment. So question will be 3, I think 2 or 4. Later nanti kita finalize balik dia punya format. Okay, but still this is actually something that you cannot play. You can underestimate the question. Okay, this coming exams, the covers of the chapter will be more. Okay, and the calculations will be a bit tough. Okay, so you kena betul-betul alert lah. Starting from the chapter 4. 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, we done chapter 4. Alhamdulillah, we done chapter 4. But we not really. I'm sure we not really grabs in terms of the calculation yet. Okay, I know, never mind. But my intention now is actually to finish the syllabus, and after that we will go for the exercise intensively about our exercise, especially for the past year. No worry about that. So just follow whatever I plan for you. Okay. So for this week, I want you to answer the AC, the chapter from the chapter 4, chapter 5, and whoever not submit yet the extra task, you just can submit by using the link that I give. Okay, I already mentioned in the group, right? Okay, for this week's. So please, for the chapter 4, chapter 5 AC, and for the repeating question, no need to answer it again. I just noted there, which is the same question as in the year of what, which sessions, which past year. All right. Okay, that's for the chapter 4, chapter 5, and plus with the extra task, to whom not submitted yet, and that's submit. Okay, no problem. Yeah. So today we continue with the chapter 5. Chapter 5 is actually more to the concept and theory. There is no calculation at all, but there is a one formula which is not valid for this formula to be turned in the one set of the question. If you see so far, our past year, there is no question come up from this chapter 5, or even the chapter 6. Right. So just please rest assured. Okay, this is more on the essay part. Okay, so this is actually about the public finance. Inshallah kita akan habiskan hari ini juga. Public finance is very short and brief. Right. So talking about the public finance, what do you understand with the public finance? Sebut je public finance, apa yang terfikir dalam kepala you? Apa dia? Public is what? Finance is what? Public more to the we are lah, the people, right? So finance, which is how to fulfill our need and the facility. All right. So this is actually about the government action. Apa tindakan kerajaan? Okay, to what? To financing the government expenditure, which is relate to the society. We are the society, which is to fulfill our needs and want. All right. And so this is about the government action, and of course, when we talk about the government, okay, when we talk about the government, uh, government is very synonym with the tax and the government expenditure. Tax and government expenditure. Eh? Tax, subsidy, and of course the expenditure the government made. Right? Okay. So of course the tax is actually the revenue. Okay, and the expenditure will be there's a two type of the expenditure will be operating and development. So about the public finance for this chapter, we will cover the revenue of the government, we will cover the expenditure of the government, we will cover when we talk about the revenue that's actually related to the tax structure, so that also will cover in this and this is actually in the earlier part, this is actually from the conventional perspective, and we also have to cover from the Islamic perspective. Okay, so we go one by one, right? All right, concept of the public finance. And before we go straight to the revenue, what's the revenue? Of course, you have to understand this is the main functions of the public finance. Or in other words, but who in charge of public finance is the government, right? So in other words, this is also actually the rules or functions of the government in this part of the public finance. Kalau ikutkan dia punya tanggungjawab kerajaan ni sangat besar, sangat luas. Tapi in this topic under this the public finance, okay, these are the major rules of the government. Apa dia? First is actually the allocation function, to allocate the what, the money, of course the budget, okay, and as a government, so government have to give attention to two sector, which is all countries actually we have the same situation. So government have to think about the private sector, government have to think about the public sector. So that's mean government have to allocate wisely for the public sector and for the private sector. Okay. Is it okay if I nak tanya you all, is it okay if the government prioritize the private sector compared to the public sector? So that's mean whatever the budget goes to the private sector first. Is it okay? Tak lah, I nak dengar respon. Is it okay for the government to allocate or to prioritize the private sector compared to the public sector? Hi.
No,
Okay, why no? What's the logic?
because nanti tak seimbang nanti untuk sektor yang lain.
Sah-sah bila dia dah lebihkan private sector, it will not be balanced, right? Tapi apa dia punya konsekuen dia? Selain daripada tak balance, okay, what is actually other consequence? Come on, think. Pagi lagi ni, of course you fresh. You punya brain ni lagi aktif sekarang ni pagi. So push your brain. What's the consequence if the private sector will be the top in our country? Tak lah.
Harga barang naik.
Why?
Because kalau private sector dia, kalau government lebihkan kepada private sector, so private sector ni dia macam dia memonopoli ke semua sektor lah. So harga tu government tak boleh nak handle.
Okay. Lagi? Tak ada lah. Okay, betul lah tu actually. Right, private sector have to understand. Private sector ni dia punya main aim dia apa dia? To chasing a profit, right? And things about the profit. Okay, so doesn't matter about the welfare of the society. The most important is about the profit. So if the private sector is actually kata on top mode and everything, so definitely everything will have to be charged. Semua kena charge. There is orang kata cost for everything. In fact, kalau nak pergi balai polis pun silap hari bulan kena bayar. if the private sector in charge. Okay, so that is not actually appropriate for the private sector to be in the tops of all everything. We can see that the other country example like UK. Okay, other country which is going to implement or apply the capital economic system, di mana private sector is actually going to have a full power. We can say it's a full power, but very less intervention from the government. So it's not good for the people, for the people cost of the living, and of course when the cost of living increase, and it will affect the standard of living. Dua-dua tu saling berkait kan. So this is not good. Why? Because not everybody is actually going to earn a very higher income. Ada je yang kurang. That's why kita ada istilah B40 and so on, right? So we have to cater all these categories of the people income. So then barulah ada fair and square. All right. So these are the main function for the government. So the government should wisely allocate the budget or the money to the public sector and to the private sector. But both need a budget. Why? Because we need to grow. Okay, our economy need something to, need fund to develop, to expand. So that's why even the private sector is actually already rich or with the money, but still the private sector also need a fund from the government. Okay, taklah semuanya dia kena tanggung kan. Okay, this is the main function, which is allocation function. All right. Okay. Second is actually distribution function. Distribute what? Okay. Since the government are very synonym with the tax and expenditure, so that's mean how actually government implement the tax, how actually government distribute the tax thoroughly, which is everybody is a compulsory have to pay. But how? So by yes, of course, I have to. Okay, but this is actually have to done it with the fair and square lah. Okay, so that's why in Malaysia, we actually implement the progressive tax rate. What is that mean by the progressive tax rate? Which is whoever earn high income, they have to pay the income tax more. I mean the tax rate for the high income is higher. Yelah betul lah kan. Logik lah. Siapa yang berpendapatan tinggi, lebih dia punya income dia, so dia pun kena bayar cukai pendapatan yang lebih banyak. Kan? So it's not fair if the people which is the lowest income have to pay higher as highest income tax. So kita punya cukai pendapatan ni the tax rate for the income tax is actually um I can say like yes, it's actually equivalence with the levels of the income level. Alright. So siapa yang lebih katakan for 10,000, there will be a different tax rate. Whoever have the 20,000, there will different tax rate. Okay. That's how distribution function. Maknanya dia bukan sekadar kutip cukai sebagai hasil, tetapi the government also have to distribute it well, fair and square. So same goes for the expenditure. Okay, and not just collect the revenue, not just think about the tax, but also for the expenditure. So government also have to spend wisely, and which is affects all the sector, not just for the certain sector. All right. So there's a distribution function of the government, and the third function is actually stabilization function. Stabilize what? So of course, in economic, we actually face or encounter with the economic problem. If frequently we actually faces with this economic problem, it shows that our foundations of economy is not good. And it shows that our which is our firms, our whatever the market structure that we have is not really established enough to counter attacks whatever the economic problem. So this is very important. Why? Because government have to stand by, always alert, right? You always alert with the policy, with something that the government can fix whatever the problem coming. Okay, so that's why in terms of this stabilization function, government have the public have the sorry, it's not public, fiscal. We have the fiscal policy, we have the monetary policy, we have the direct control policy. So government kena pandai guna tiga-tiga ni to account to whatever the problem coming, especially in the economic problem. Okay, so ini maksudnya establishing function, not just collect the tax in for the sake of the revenue and spend it back for the society. Bukan itu sahaja kerja government ataupun functions of the government in this public finance. Okay, but government also have to alert or have to stand by with the certain policy to stabilize back. Right? Kena betulkan balik, kena balancekan balik whatever the situation in economy. Alright. So these are the major functions of the government in the public finance. Okay, so now we go to the revenue. Next subtopic. Revenue to the government. Okay, everybody know I think sebut je revenue apa dia sumber kewangan kerajaan. So of course this is tax. Okay, and talking about the tax, actually, for the government revenue, there's a three category of this revenue. Apa dia? So first is actually tax revenue. Tax revenue which is apa? Hasil cukai lah. So and tax revenue is a compulsory contribution imposed by the government on private individuals and organizations to raise revenue and to fund expenditure. So anything regarding the tax is actually the main revenue for the government. And for the tax revenue, actually we can this is actually fall to two category. Siapa masih ingat? Tax revenue ada dua jenis. Siapa dia? Anybody?
Indirect tax dengan direct tax ke?
Very good. Betul. Yes, and that's true. Direct tax dan indirect tax itu adalah dua jenis tax revenue. Okay, but what's the difference between the tax and the indirect tax? Apa bezanya? In terms of what? Kalau direct tax, apa dia? I didn't ask the sample. It's not about the sample or example. No, it's actually what's actually the difference between this and between the direct tax and indirect tax?
Kalau direct tax dia tak boleh pindahkan beban dia dekat sesiapa. Kalau indirect tax boleh pindahkan beban tu kepada pembeli.
Yes, exactly. That's correct. Accurate. Okay, correct and accurate. Okay, betul. Direct tax, the burden to pay, we can't shift to that person. But for the indirect tax, we just can shift to that person. Like you already covered in the 162. Remember, the tax which is bear by the producer, which is have to bear by the consumer. That's how the producer actually share the burden of tax. But under indirect tax. But for the direct tax, cannot. Example like me. I have to pay income tax. But why? Because my salary is actually a bit kata greater than the 2,500. So whoever in Malaysia have a greater than 2,000 starting from 2,500, we have to pay the income tax. All right. So my income, my salary. So definitely I have to pay the income tax. But can I expect other person to pay my income tax? Memang tak boleh lah. Kenapa? It's a direct tax. Direct is direct to the individual itself. Direct to you. So you cannot shift other person. And so that's the difference between direct tax and indirect tax. And hopefully you can remember what's actually the example of direct tax and indirect tax. Okay. All right. So that's the first revenue for the government, which is tax revenue. Second is a non-tax revenue. Non-tax revenue, hasil bukan cukai. Ini hasil cukai. Jadi this is non-tax revenue, hasil bukan cukai. So maknanya itu dah pendapatan tetapi bukan daripada cukai. So non-tax revenue are revenue which arise from other sources beside tax selain daripada cukai. Contohnya apa? Receipt from the license, regulation fees and the permits, service fees, sales of good, interest and return on investment and fine. Okay, example like receipt from the license. License apa ni? Kita kalau nak buka perniagaan apa-apa kena tak dapat license? Kena tak pergi majlis perbandaran to get the license?
Kena.
Have to kan? Kalau you tengok mana-mana stall tepi jalan tu walaupun dia berniaga di tepi jalan saja, if you notice biasanya peniaga tepi jalan ni dia akan gantung something dekat dia punya stall tu which is stated there license ataupun the ownerships of the store itself, and kita boleh nampak this is actually from the majlis perbandaran for that area. Okay, itu bermakna dia kena bayar. Kalau tak, of course kena denda dan kena tarik whatever the push card yang dia ada kan. So that's actually the revenue for the government. Okay, bayangkan itu baru satu negeri. Kalau seluruh Malaysia, kalau nak kira agak berapa stall tepi jalan. In fact for the stall burger yang tepi jalan tu pun still need a license. Itu pun kena bayar. Yes, it's not expensive but still kena bayar. So agak-agaklah kalau ada 1 juta stall burger dekat Malaysia ni, bertambah tak duit kerajaan?
Tambah.
Bertambah lah kan. Itu just from the burger stall tau. Yang kecil-kecil yang comel ni kan. So how about orang kata the real business like the restaurant, like whatever the boutique, whatever the shop lot, okay, that's all have to pay all the receipt. Okay, so in other words, to show that if the country have got a very good business activity, bermakna apa? The government have a very good sources of the income. Lagi aktif dia punya orang kata economic activity, so the income revenue for the government will be higher also, will be greater also. Itu maksudnya. Okay, alright. So apa contoh lagi? Service fees, source of good, interest, retail investment and fine. Sebutnya about fine ni. Baru-baru ni kerajaan dah lancarkan apa dia dan bagi diskaun. Apa benda tu? Siapa alert? Sekarang ni
Saman.
sampai. Yes. Saman betul lah kan. 80% diskaun tu. Saya pun tak check lagi ada saman ke tidak. Na'udzubillah ada kan. But this is one part of the government income. I mean revenue. But kerajaan bermurah hati kan, bagi diskaun sampai 80%. Banyak tu. Yes, of course lah. Tak logik lah. Takkanlah seseorang tu kata ada sampai 10 saman. But it can be. It can be. So that's why maybe that's actually yang kata the way for the government to help the society. Okay lah, siapa yang ada patut bersyukur dan better settle, clear the payment, right? Okay, so that's a non-tax revenue. And the third types of revenue is actually non-revenue receipt. Non-revenue receipt, penerimaan hasil, bukan the revenue, non-revenue receipt. Macam mana nak translate ni? Hasil bukan, penerimaan bukan hasil lah. Tak reti nak translate. But in English, the non-revenue receipt. So this is actually very low sources ataupun reliable so the government to the source of income. Okay, why? Kenapa? Cuba tengok dulu contoh dia. Refund of the expenditure. Refund bermakna apa? Hasil ataupun baki pulang balik, refund. Kalau ada refund, adalah makna masuk balik kepada akaun kerajaan. Kalau tak ada refund, tak adalah. So can we actually, kalau you pun, do you think that refund will be the good sources of the income? Refund. Is it the good sources of the income? Is it stable? Stable ke tak? Tak, of course. Memanglah tak. Kalau kita sendiri pun, takkan kita nak berharap income kita kepada kot-kot lah ada lebihan pulang balik. Possible lah jawabnya kan. But for the government, because actually government have kata, a lot of transaction, transfer and so on. Okay, as the whole government have to, for the center government can have to give the allocation to the state government and so on. So there must be there will be like a refund if the state government not utilize the money. Contoh, okay, so that's a refund will be goes back to the account of the government. Example, what are the interdepartmental credit, the refunds of the overpayment, erroneous payment and so on. Ini semua berkaitan dalam apa sahaja yang example like claim and so on. Okay, and in fact example, if we apply loan, kata yang kita ada pinjaman dengan negara lain, example like Jepun. Kalau kita ada pinjaman dengan Jepun, kita kena bayar dengan ringgit Malaysia ke ataupun kena bayar dengan yen? Cuba jawab. Let's say we actually borrow the Japan money. So we have to pay the Japan with what? Ringgit Malaysia or yen? Yen lah, sebab kita berhutang dengan Jepun. Kita kena follow lah dia punya currency dia. Takkanlah kita nak bayar dengan kita punya ringgit Malaysia. Right? So kita pinjam dalam apa? Sama je kalau kita pinjam dengan amount jumlah ringgit Malaysia, which is at the end we have to convert to the yen. But of course we have to pay in yen. So katakanlah at one maybe month or particular date, which is the currency, our currency is actually ataupun appreciate. Currency kita naik sikit. Bila naik sikit bermakna apa? Banyak tak kita kena keluarkan duit kita untuk bayar loan? Tiba-tiba currency naik. Kalau dulu katakan RM4 Malaysia dengan RM1, tiba-tiba naik jadi RM3 ataupun RM2.5 Malaysia dengan RM1. RM2 Malaysia naik kan? So at that situation, what happened to the amount of money that we prepare so all this while to pay for the loan? Tiba-tiba naik. So bermakna apa? Adakah duit yang kita bayar tu makin bertambah atau berkurang?
Bertambah.
Are you
Kurang.
sure? Kurang lah sebab kita punya currency dah naik. Bila currency kita dah naik, bermakna our currency will be orang kata stronger. And orang kata is look like to be equal with the yen. Kalau equal, kalau sama, bayangkan kita nak pergi ke Jepun tu, katakan pertukarannya RM1 macam RM1. Tak ke haru biru dibuatnya? Tak ke hari-hari you boleh pergi fly ke Japan tu, breakfast kat Malaysia, lunch dekat Japan, sebab bagi you sama je nilai. Betul tak?
Betul.
Hopefully lawan dia mana nak tahu kan. Ringgit Malaysia will be better appreciate more. Lagi tinggi kan. Amin. Tapi apa-apa pun settlekan pandemik dia dulu kan. Okay, so these are the third types of category revenue for the government, which is non-revenue receipt. So altogether we got three. The tax revenue, which is the main sources, and the second, the non-tax revenue, not so main, secondary, and of course the last, which is the non-revenue receipt, which is a very low depend ataupun reliable so the government to the source of the income. Tapi kalau ada still masuk juga dalam account kerajaan. Okay, so that's about the revenue. Alright, so now we discuss about the expenditure. So expenditure after government collect the revenue, okay, collect revenue in terms of the variety of the tax, the category of the tax. So how actually government will orang kata spend it back? Macam mana dia nak belanja balik? So of course the government actually have to utilize the tax revenue in the forms of the operating expenditure and the development expenditure. Maknanya duit itu at the end dia akan pergi kepada dua kategori ni. So for the operating is actually, in other words, sometimes we refer as a short run. Okay, short run expenditure bermakna apa? Perbelanjaan dalam jangka masa pendek. But for this development expenditure is actually more refer to the long term expenditure, jangka masa panjang. Kenapa jangka masa pendek dan panjang? So example like for the operating expenditure, but this is actually more, the objective for this operating expenditure is actually more to here expenses of the operating and administering a government department. Okay, and this is others example like emolument, service charge, debts, pensions and gratuities, grants and transfer, asset acquisitions, supplies and service. Because all these things is actually occurred almost daily. Hari-hari berlaku. Ada je. Like pencen. Hari-hari ada je orang pencen. Mungkin hari ni dekat Johor berapa orang, dekat Perlis berapa orang, dekat Kedah berapa orang. But hari-hari ada je pension. And the pension is actually the income which is the government have to pay to the staff, right? Because as like macam compensations lah. Okay, itu maksud saya, which is berlaku hari-hari dan non-stop. So we consider this one is actually under the operating. Okay, but for the development expenditure is which is long term, this expenditure of course is a huge, sangat besar. Contoh, do we have any current project of the government in terms of the facility yang tengah ongoing sekarang ni? Ada tak? Apa projek kerajaan yang tengah ongoing sekarang ni? Ada tak jalan raya tengah buat, highway ke tengah buat? Ada tak? So far. Yang you tahulah.
LRT. LRT kan mati.
Daripada mana ke mana tu? Nak sambung ke mana tu?
Yang sebab saya duduk Kelang, dia nampak dia pergi ke Jalan, pergi ke Meru. Tak pasti yang Medan, tapi dia tu lah. Daripada dia dekat sepanjang Kelang tu lah.
To Kelang. Okay, so far is actually well connect in the KL city, right? So dia dah nak expand more. to the whole of the Selangor kan. Sebab kita ada rangkaian yang cantik sangat untuk MRT commuter and so on. So I hope sangat I can see all this facility in the Johor. uh, Kalau kawan saya kata in your dream. In your dream but still a dream kan. Boleh sebenarnya. It just the problem is for the Johor. Johor ni dia punya kawasan atau geografik ni terlalu besar. So anything which is orang kata to have this type of the facility sometimes is not worth it. Alright, kalau nak buat komuter pun LRT kat Johor ni agak-agak ke mana? Ke mana tumpuan rakyat Johor? Worth it tak kalau kita nak buat LRT ke, komuter ke, whatever, which is daripada mana kalau nak katakan ke Senai Airport. Senai Airport and then ke mana? Adakah hari-hari the volume to go to the Senai Airport tu tinggi? What do you think? Is it worth it? Kalau buat LRT hari-hari untuk just for the Senai Airport sahaja, which is berapa orang aja, I mean even though hari-hari pun berapa orang je yang akan pergi travel, tak semua orang akan guna. So of course sometimes dia just katakan saya duduk di Kulai nak pergi Senai Airport, takkanlah beri saya nak naik komuter. So of course I will just drive, right? So this is the problems in the Johor, which is to connect for the one city to another city. Sometimes in terms of the count number of the passenger is not worth it. Sebab tu kita tidak ada. But what we can see, which is the state government already and always improve the quality of the highway and road. So far itu saya nampak lah okay lah kan daripada yang tak ada. But this is actually the development which is take a long term. Example, if the government want to build a hospital, can we actually complete a building of the hospital to in 1 month? Sebulan je boleh siap? Boleh tak? Logik tak? Did you notice that actually on the way to our campus there is a new dekat dekat Petron tu kan, dekat situ ada sign which is tapak pembinaan hospital Pasir Gudang. Did you notice ke? Dah lama tak pergi ke Pasir Gudang sebenarnya. Okay, there is actually one signage. So still ongoing, dah lama dah project tu. Lama tak lama lah, I think start for them last year kot lah. But it's actually have to start early, but because of the pandemic we have to stop. But still ongoing. Itu mengambil masa berapa lama lagi saya pun tak tahu. Another 3 years maybe, I don't know. Why? Because of course with the current situation now, we cannot actually speed the construction work. So have to follow whatever the SOP and so on. But this is under development expenditure. Kenapa sangat lama mengambil masa? So here the operating and the development for the expenditure. Okay, this is another subtopic which is the types of the tax structure. Okay, about the tax structure. So we have three types of the tax structure. We have the progressive, we have the proportion tax, and we have the regressive. Okay, as a progressive tax, as I mentioned to you, progressive is actually a positive relationship between the income and the tax rate. In other words, the more or the greater income that you earn, the higher the tax rate that you have to pay. So ini yang saya masukkan dalam income tax. So for the income tax, the types of the tax is actually progressive tax. Progresif berapa mana? Lagi tinggi pendapatan you, lagi tinggi cukai you kena bayar. Itu progresif. So apa lagi? You can just find other example which is these types of the tax is actually a types of the progressive. Namanya lain-lain. Okay, cukai kita ada banyak cukai, jenis cukai. Tapi adakah jenis cukai itu adalah jenis yang progresif, regresif ataupun proportion? Okay, but one thing for sure for our personal income tax, the types of the personal income tax is actually progressive. Kenapa? Lagi tinggi gaji seseorang tu, lagi tinggi cukai dia kena bayar. Okay, that's a progressive tax. Okay, so if you look at the diagram, nampak tak ada upward sloping. Upward sloping is positive between the tax and between the income. Right, so this is the first, and the second is actually the proportion tax, or sometimes we refer as a constant tax, ataupun ada juga others reference refer this as a linear tax. Okay, kenapa? Because the rate of the tax remain constant as income changes. Nampak tak, income ni bergerak ke kanan ke kanan, mana makin bertambah. But here under the tax rate, it's actually fixed there, it's root there, tak bergerak. Katakan ini adalah 5%, maknanya 5% sehingga bila-bila, infinity agaknya. Okay, so example is actually corporation tax. Corporation tax is actually apa? Cukai corporate. Cukai corporate is not easy to be like just change hari ini 5%, next month 20%, cannot. Okay, because it's actually about the business kan. Government have really to really take care of these types of the cukai supaya at the end is not give a burden to the producer. Sebab producer ni juga perlu kita support in terms of this. Kalau dia tidak, orang kata tidak dapat berterusan untuk berniaga to I mean continue the operation. So bagaimana bisnes ini boleh bertahan? So kalau bisnes tidak bertahan, kalau ditutup, what happen? Ramai orang yang akan berhenti, tak ada kerja. So this is what actually government have to avoid. Sebab kena faham, as a government alone only not capable to provide the jobs opportunity for all the people. So of course government need also the private sector, and this private sector have to pay the corporation tax. So kena jugalah kata be balance, be kata square for the producer. So it depends lah. Kalau of course jenis yang skill yang besar, bermakna profitnya tinggi. So kalau profit tinggi, kenalah bayar jumlahnya pun tinggi, even though the rate of the tax is actually same. 5% yang dikenakan cukai ke atas pendapatan syarikat, bagi syarikat berhad compare dengan syarikat enterprise, berbeza kan. Sebab apa? Dia orang kata lagi tinggi company tu, maknanya lagi banyak income dia kan, the capital dia. Okay, so that's the proportion tax. And the third type is actually the regressive tax. Okay, regressive tax is the tax structure, and the lower the income group will bear a higher proportions of the tax than the high incomes of the group. So kalau tengok kat sini, this is tax rate, this is actually income, and this is downward sloping. That means it's a negative relationship. Negative relationship. So income kalau dekat sini adalah apa? Income yang rendah. Tetapi kalau tengok if we connect the dot, right? So the tax rate is actually higher. Income-nya rendah, but the tax rate is higher. So sometimes we cannot refer this in the reality. If you can find what's actually the examples of the regressive tax, bagus. Okay, put in your note. But in the reality, it's actually jarang berlaku. So that's why sometimes for the certain topic in the economic, normally on the paper. Okay, so these are the three types of the tax structure, right? Okay, and then we go to the next topic, which is the budget. So I just continue ni sebab tak banyak lagi, lepas ni sikit je. Okay, so the types of the government budget. Budget ni apa? I think every year you all pernah dengar pembentangan belanjawan bagi tahun berikut. Biasa tahun depan lah kan. Untuk tahun depan punya budget, kita dah bentangkan dalam tahun ini. And normally by the July or August, kerajaan akan bentangkan. So siapa yang bentangkan? The Prime Minister or sometimes the Finance Minister. It depends lah. Okay, so here the types of the budget is very simple. Remember, for the inflation gap, for that topic, you just have to compare the Y and the YF, right? The YE and YF. But for this budget, you just have to concern about the figure of the GNT, the government expenditure and the tax. So which one is greater? Tu je kena compare. Okay, if the government is greater than the T, that's mean apa ni maksudnya? The expenditure is greater than the revenue. Belanja lebih tetapi hasil pendapatan kurang. So this is what we call or refer as a budget deficit. Budget deficit formation ni bila berlaku? Setiap tahun berlaku sebenarnya. Surplus berlaku bila? I think dalam early 90 something. Masa tu je merasa. After that, continuously until now is actually deficit budget formation. Always deficit. Teruknya kan. Bermakna ekonomi kita ni apa tak mantap lagi. Why? Because we are small and open economy. Remember? These are very kata the great of the characteristics of Malaysia's economy. We are small and open. Dah lah kecil. And then kita open economy. So apa saja yang lalu kat atas semua kita kena. Negara lain yang ada masalah kita pun terbabit sama. Because why? We have the trade with them. We also depends to them in our international trade. In order to sell our product. Kita jual barang kita kepada negara lain. So kalau negara tu bermasalah, boleh tak dia beli barang kita? Boleh ke tidak? Mampu tak?
Tak.
Tak. So kita ni dah lah kecil dah. Kita bergantung kepada negara luar. Kalau negara tu bermasalah, memanglah dia tak mampu nak beli. Dia ada masalah nak beli. Dan kita pun nak jual dekat siapa? Sebab for each trade will come with the MOU. For all the trade normally between the government, between the country, and there is actually MOU behind. Dan bukan senang pun kita nak convince other country to buy our good, because in the trade there is a win-win situation. Bukan orang je yang nak beli barang kita, kita pun kena beli barang orang. Okay, so bila berlaku macam ni, kebanyakannya that's why occur the deficit budget. Alright, so bila government berbelanja lebih daripada revenue. Second is actually surplus. Surplus is actually when the government expenditures less than tax. Mana kita collect tax tu lebih daripada belanja. Okay, so that's actually refer to the budget surplus. And other which is balance budget. Balance budget senang lah, which is the G equal to the T, which is this condition ni I think dalam history of the Malaysia, if I'm not mistaken, there is a one time only we achieve the balanced budget. After that, never ever we can find the balanced budget. It's a very kata very precious to get this kan. Tak pernah saya sekali aja kot. Saya ingat tahun berapa. Kalau you rajin, cubalah. Seraklah sejarah kewangan Malaysia. Okay, so that's a balance. So of course these three types of budget ada tiga, deficit, surplus and the budget, and you just have to compare the GNT only, not more than that. Just the figure of the GNT. Dalam soalan pun ada kan, tiba-tiba ada keluar soalan, tak apa, but itu biasa. In the chapter 3 memang akan ada soalan macam tu. Cumanya saya pun terkejutlah keluar. Sebab I didn't stress about it. But no worry, small matter. It's just small amount only. Tawakal. InsyaAllah doa. No worry. Okay, so when we talk about the government public finance, when we talk about the government, definitely is also synonym with the fiscal policy. Okay, this one we already done, right? And you already done in your extra task. For the monetary policy, for the fiscal policy and the direct control policy. So tolong cari maklumat tu, siapa yang belum buat, orang kata selengkapnya, because it will help you a lot. And because that will be like your one-stop center of the note for this fiscal policy. Sebab dalam soalan pun kalau nak keluar pun, dia akan keluar dua-dua, which is the policy and the problem. Okay, agak jarang for the question to just give you to explain about the policy only. But ada lah, especially for the monetary policy, which is under contraction expansion ni kan, ada je. But biasanya ataupun trendnya, normally dia akan keluar example for the fiscal policy, how fiscal policy overcome the problems of the unemployment, or how monetary policy overcome the problems of the inflation, and how the direct control policy overcome the problems of the balance of payment. So this is all you have to alert. So that's why bila you buat nota yang macam saya minta tu in that orang kata arrange, insyaAllah you akan lagi nampak, you akan lagi jelas. You akan lagi, okay, ini fiscal, ini cara fiscal, ini cara monetary policy, ini cara direct control policy. Okay, siapa yang buat dia akan nampak. Right, so I will not cover this one. I just want to remind you. Okay, ini kita dah cover pun, alhamdulillah, in the extra task. Okay, Right, and then we proceed to the this is the second last topic, which is the government revenue, but this is actually from the Islamic perspective. Yes, as a government, okay, for the Islamic government, so Islamic government also have the sources of the income. And so far kita tengok all this one kita discuss is actually conventional. But how about Islamic government? Okay, these are the list of the income ataupun sources of the revenue for the Islamic government. Apa dia? First is zakat. Zakat ni I think you all pernah tahu lah. Zakat ada berapa jenis? Boleh namakan tak? What example? Beritahu saya apa jenis zakat you tahu?
Zakat pendapatan, zakat fitrah.
Lagi?
Penternakan.
Ada zakat pertanian, betul? Apa lagi? Zakat barang
Zakat
kemas.
emas.
Ada. Lagi? Harta? Ada tak?
Ada zakat harta.
Ada.
Okey, banyak sebenarnya in Islam. Kita je tahu ke tak tahu? Ambil tahu ke buat tak tahu? Okay. So zakat is actually main income for the Islamic government, and this is actually compulsory lah. Sebut je zakat, of course compulsory. Kalau kita ada harta yang banyak, tanah yang banyak, rumah sewa yang banyak, itu semua have to zakatkan untuk sucikan balik kan. Ingat yang datangnya daripada Allah. Kita just orang kata meminjamnya sahaja. So have to pay the zakat. And the al-fa'in. Al-fa'in ni ada ke lagi ni? What's the al-fa'in? This actually the property of the disbelief leave behind. Maksudnya pada zaman Rasulullah dulu kalau berperang, pada mereka yang kalah, mereka kena tinggalkanlah segala like perisai, pedang and so on kan. But at that time, that's actually apa? The property, consider property. Perisai itu pun consider property. Okay, masa tu. But masa now ni ada tak? Kita ada perang tak? Kita berpegang tapi kita tak gunalah segala pedang apa semua. Kita guna apa? Sekarang ni kalau perang guna apa agaknya?
Senjata.
Senjata apa? Yang paling best senjata apa?
api.
Keyboard.
Keyboard warrior kan. Itu virtual punya perang kan. Tapi kalau kalau the real punya perang, selain daripada senjata tu, apa yang biasanya? Nowadays
Bom.
bom dia macam what I mean, dia punya efeknya tu tak tara sangat. Ini kalau
Nuklear.
nuklear terlalu ganas. Dia ada satu, dia very silent aja, tapi kalau kena tu memang habis. Who knows? Apa tu? Senjata apa tu?
Rasuah.
Mana dalam perang sempat nak bagi rasuah? Orang semua pegang senjata. Ini jenis yang dia macam bom, tetapi bila kena tu, it depends to the amount that orang kata how many that bomb tu will be going to fall, dan kat mana kena. Kalau di tempat tu populationnya tinggi, kalau kena dengan caranya, sekali jatuh tu kalau 1,000 orang ni, 1,000 orang boleh meninggal. Terus meninggal. Atom? Apa itu atom? Atom tu bukan nuklear ke? Siapa tahu? Come on, crack your brain. Come on, this is alamak. Takkan tak tahu? Haish. Tak tahu, seriously. Senjata biologi. Kalau setakat machine gun tu is more about the bullet and so on kan. Biology like apa, the nerve, saraf kan. Senjata yang which is melumpuhkan saraf dan terus meninggal. Very silent, tetapi small drop sahaja can affect everything. So every country is actually eager to look for these types of this weapon. Benda ni mudah. Sebab apa? Dia tidak memerlukan banyak energy kalau nak bunuh orang. Na'udzubillah. Okay, makin lama makin ke depan, lagi tinggi teknologi, maknanya lagi macam-macam kita boleh create any weapons, anything which is orang kata because of the advance of the science technology kan. Tapi itulah dia tak bagus. Sebab apa? Sebab manusia salah guna. Salah guna pengetahuan. Sepatutnya dengan pengetahuan sains yang ada yang tinggi ni, buat apa? Patutnya do something which is to facilitate all the people needs and want. Sepatutnya begitu. Contoh, I think kat Malaysia ni sangat-sangat memerlukan apa? Boleh tak tanam padi di tempat yang kecil, tetapi contoh tanam padi dalam satu dalam apa pasu ke apa ke, dah boleh cukup dah, boleh keluarkan satu paket beras. Contoh. Tapi dalam masa yang sangat singkat. Boleh ke? But that's actually the use of the technology. Kenapa tidak ke arah itu? Especially for the agriculture ni. Kan? Tetapi itulah dia. Bila semua orang hanya melihat power is power. So everybody actually want to chase for the power, the power and money. Who have the power, who have the money? So confirm dialah yang apa, yang memegang dunia. So jangan jadi macam tu, right? Okay, Al-Fa'i dah tak ada dah now. For currently for this area dah tak ada Al-Fa'i. But that's actually one sort of the income sources for the Islamic government. Jizyah, apa itu jizyah? The protection, right? Protections tax. Okay, zaman Rasulullah, yes. Any non-Muslim wishes orang kata stay in the Muslim country, they have to pay the jizyah. Ataupun the protection tax. Okay, but now tak adalah. Zaman tu agak orang kata terancam bagi Muslim and non-Muslim. But ada non-Muslim yang not prone to the war. Just orang kata can just be live and live together with the Muslim. So that's why at that time dikenakan jizyah. Okay. And then apa lagi? Haraj. Haraj ni actually the land tax. Cukai tanah. And taxation as usual. Usually is actually the personal tax. Like macam juga personal income tax. Because it's for the personal income. Sedekah as you know. And wakaf pun you tahu. Okay. Wakaf, I think this is very, very impressive tool under Islam, which is can be utilized to enhance back our society standard of living without kata need a lot of money. Maksudnya contoh kalau nak buat surau, nak buat apa saja surau ke, madrasah ke, masjid ke, pusat tahfiz ke, even nak buat sekolah ke, nak buat hospital ke, kita gunakan apa? Kita gunakan kaedah wakaf tunai, cash wakaf to finance this cost. Sebab dengan kaedah ini, siapa yang mewakafkan, we are in Muslim, we believe that bila kita keluarkan duit kita untuk sesuatu yang benefit kepada ummah, pahalanya berterusan kan. So this is actually very significant to finance whatever the development that we want to do. Kalau dekat Johor, apa yang kita nak buat, ingat tak? Johor nak buat apa yang menggunakan sistem wakaf ni? Kalau buka radio je memang itu je lah dia punya orang kata iklan dia. Dia punya apa, what we call kalau radio ni, saya tak ingat. Capsule, whatever lah. To actually kita to promote this wakaf ni. Nak buat apa kat Johor? Projek apa? Menggunakan sistem wakaf ni. Siapa tahu? Tak tahu lah. Seriously tak tahu? Masya Allah. Apa? Dekat Johor kita ada sistem ni, terminal bus tu, remember? Apa kita panggil kat situ? Saya jarang pergi situ. Terminal bus kat Johor tu? What we call that?
Lakin ke?
Yes. Lakin Central kan? Lakin Central. This is actually kata Johor have a new project to enhance, to upgrade the place to be kata like very exclusive and inclusive, not just bus that like macam one stop center. Ala Bandar Tasik Selatan, I rasa lah ala sebab ada taxi, ada bus, ada bus express, ada bus hari-hari, bus lompat and so on, everything's there. Kan, but to upgrade that one, of course we need a money, we need a fund, we need capital to develop. So if I'm not mistaken, so Wakaf Anur, if I'm not mistaken, will be utilized to finance this project. Not just that, but other project also in Johor. Johor, they quite loud and vocal to promote all these things. Okay, but yes, this is good actually. So this is actually the revenue, the list of revenue for the Islamic government. And the last is actually of course, when there's a revenue, there's expenditure. So how actually in Islam cater this? Kalau dia nak belanja dalam government Islam ni, apa yang actually the focus of the Islamic government? So first is actually the expenditures on the task ordained by the Syariah. Maknanya jenis perbelanjaan yang memang dah di-listkan ataupun disenaraikan di dalam Al-Quran, which is ordained by Syariah. Apa dia? So one of course the welfare of the society, and the jalan the dakwah. Okay, so whatever is actually expenditure that need to dakwah, so this is another task which is ordained by the Sharia. So it's actually priority, perlu. So kalau dalam Islam, kerajaan kena letak ini sebagai yang utama. Alright, and second, expenditures necessitated by task assigned to the state by the people. That's mean there's actually the demand from the people to the government. Barulah kerajaan akan buat benda ni dan I mean expand lah. Okay, contoh I think paling jelas which is Sungai Kim Kim dekat Johor. With that problem which is all the questions has rise up kan. Siapa yang selama hari ni menjaga sungai tu tak monitor ke sehingga sampai macam tu teruknya jadi kan. So because of that incident, so there's actually strong demand by the people especially at that area, supaya kerajaan look forward for this issue. So adalah orang kata the measuring steps to overcome this problem. So itu bermakna kerajaan kena keluar duit nak bersihkan and so on kan. So this is actually example the expenditure which is necessitated by the task by assigned by the people. Ini yang di demand by people. So ni kena keluar. This is example. Okay, and the third is actually expenditure necessary in the light of the Sharia. In the light of the Sharia, dia macam perlu tapi maybe not so crucial. Example for the Malaysia. So far, our sources of energy still come from apa? Empangan kan, hydroelectric and so on. But one day katakanlah we actually kata have a problems with the raindrops ni, hujan ni kan. Hujan kejap ada kejap tak ada. And orang kata the waters, the total of the water that we actually can have dekat empangan makin lama makin berkurang. So this also will affects all the energy that can be generated by this. So kenapa kita tidak melihat alternative? Example like what's actually other sources to generate all this energy. Kalau Turki and negara luar diorang dah mula gunakan, Japan memang dah lama buat, which is apa? Nuclear. So of course why? Because they have the expertise. But Malaysia so far we don't have the expertise for the nuclear energy. I'm sure ada je, especially yang kita lecturer yang bahagian kimia, yang bahagian ada je. Cumanya we don't have the aspects of job in Malaysia. So that's why we not look into it. But sometime rather we have to think about this. So 10 tahun akan datang, we don't know what types of the weather that we'll face. Sekarang ni pun kita punya cuaca ni like macam for me quite haywire. 3 hari panas, tiba-tiba hujan. Bila 3 hari panas tu santai air pun tak ada. Itu belum lagi masuk masalah dari segi tiba-tiba pam ataupun jana kuasa bermasalah. Belum lagi because of the kata tak ada hujan. Okay, so this is example which is the expenditure necessary in the light of the Sharia. In fact, this is actually affect the whole ummah kan. Semua ummah, semua orang memerlukan, but government have to look into it even though not crucial for the current being. Sekarang mungkin tak critical. How about another 10 years later? How about another 15 years later? So have to prepare from now. Suppose lah for the good government have to, especially under Islam ini, dia dah kena prepare all these things. Okay, so by this we end the chapter 5, which is the public finance. Okay, so far any question? tak ada kira-kira kan. Cuma ada satu je formula tadi kat mana? Dekat tax. Which is apa, the tax of rate, total income tax divided by the income kan. There's only one formula which is tak verdict pun. Daripada satu formula tu you need one set of the question. The tax rate equal to total tax by the income 100. So kalau nak keluar pun formula ni mungkin dia akan selit-selit lah dekat chapter 2 ke ataupun chapter yang lain. Which is will not. I don't think it's actually will going to set as a one whole question. Yeah. Okay, so done. So for this week, for the second meeting, okay, there is no online meeting. I just need you to do all the exercise from the chapter 4, chapter 5, and extra task that I already give in the future, which is for those who not submit yet. Saya buka lagi link. Yang dah hantar kat Google Classroom tu, okay lah, settle dah lah. Ni yang belum lagi hantar, kuku ada yang terlepas ke apa kan. So you can just submit here by using this link. But all together with the chapter 4, chapter 5. Alright. So, anything? Ada apa-apa tak? Kalau tak ada, so okay, we stop here lah. Okay?
No, madam.
Alright, so kalau tak apa-apa, we stop here. So, Assalamualaikum.
Thank you, Madam. Waalaikumsalam.
Salam Madam.
Okay.
Madam.
Alright.
Thank you, madam.
Yes.